Alright guys, Scrappy again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Major 2 in Madrid is done. OpTic Texas eliminated for the tournament here on the very second day, not even making the Saturday a top 8 finish, despite all the confidence this team had going into the tournament. Lots of important matches today, but this one has definitely turned some serious heads. Not just struggling to get past the gentlemates earlier in the day, but then losing to Ravens in that massive grudge match in many respects. After there was lots of talk from OpTic online, the Ravens really weren't the big deal. What about this result? What do you guys think in the comments? Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. Pretty sure this was my reaction, I think, to what I was watching Vegas Falcons do during their series, and I think my facial expressions got much worse than this, because we're just going to dive into that series now. Ravens versus Falcons was a series where genuinely I thought the Falcons might have a chance of actually doing something. Like, surely this was the series. Like, I mean, Ravens the day before had been 100-point clubbed over 2 maps nearly by the Thieves. Like, they looked atrocious in, I mean, it was terrible, right? They looked absolutely atrocious in their respawn modes. It looks like Vivid might not even be able to play because of the eye thing that he's got going on here, but it turned out the Brian Saints didn't have to sub in, and Ravens played it. The map 1 Falcons had their chances, but it was this game 2 that was probably the most entertaining match I've watched all season. I could not believe my eyes. Falcons went up 5-1 here on the Vault Search and Destroy, and then they found miraculous ways to lose round after round after rounds. They were getting clutched on, they were throwing rounds with RC cars. They were just not checking corners. It was mesmerizingly impressive how they got to the winning post. I think this is the other issue with Falcons. Like, if they do ever get to a game 5, I have no confidence they have the ice to actually close it out. And this is something that Ravens will have to think about, or Falcons have to think about, sorry, was because, you know, they're at 5-1 on map 2 against Ravens, and they somehow bottle it around. I mean, this was one just absolute comedy example here, when Roxas doesn't check the corner, the second lad accidentally mounts the ladder, and the third lad does the same thing. Doom goes down, King goes down, they're all dropping. I mean, we found that hilarious. I mean, you can see my reaction here. We found that hilarious on the show, and it wasn't long after this that Ravens had taken over the map, and they'd taken over the series, and it was a quick 3-0. Even this map, the Vault Control, Falcons aren't bad at this. They got a good offense in, and they had a back-to-back defenses, I think, to try and close out this map. And both of them, they just managed to squander. I mean, this was a bad one. Roxas letting Gwinn 3-piece him like that. They just find new ways to throw. It's genuinely impressive. When you go into the series knowing that they're going to find a way to throw, it does become entertaining. But Falcons ended this stage with a respawn record of 1 in 21, I believe, which has got to be the worst that we have ever seen by quite some margin. So, look, there was drama on teams not scrimming them. That may well continue. Again, it's frustrating because you know that they've got it in them to at least win some maps and maybe go to 5. And if they can get to a map 5, you can never fully rule them out because their search and destroy isn't bad. I mean, we know how Ravens are good at it. And they should have got beaten probably on the Vault, but they managed not to somehow. Tough series to watch, to be honest. Roxas had a 0.8, Doom had a 0.7. Roxas had a good search and destroy, but it wasn't, it was to no avail, really. The reality is King can shoot. Like, there's no doubt. You watch this guy play, he can shoot. King and Exnid are actually good. So, I think if they, ideally, in an ideal world, you keep those two, you bring Kicks in, and then you find another one. Maybe even you bring in Glowfrosty or something. Maybe you bring in Clay. I don't know at that point. But there's got to be something they can do about this. I don't know what changes they're going to make, but they probably have to do something. Minnesota Rocket played the Seattle or Vancouver Surge next, and this was a big series. I mean, I've not got many highlights ready to go through, but I wanted to kind of talk through what happened, really, because Surge, they won the map 1 on the Hacienda. I felt like this series felt kind of destined for 5. The problem I think that Surge had here is that, well, Hicksy just didn't really deliver, and I think it's a problem on this specific game. Not a big fan of what Rambo did in the offseason, as you guys know, and the issue is that a player like Hicksy, he can be a glue guy, he can be a good on LAN and stuff like this. The issue is in this game, you just need a lot of slaying power. In this series for the Rocker guys, Estriel delivered, Nero delivered at times, Geo certainly delivered, and Paul X played well. He had a good series. So I think for Paul X, a very important series, right? Because map 1 of this series, he was double negative. And after that, Paul turned up big time and massively importantly so. Because if Paul didn't, Paul in the end had a 0.94 with, so not like mesmerizing, but still easily good enough to pass. And Paul had a solid series. They won the protocol, they won the red cards, and they kind of dominated the skyline. So this is the issue for Surge. They came into this tourney, they'd obviously been okay online, 4-3, but their theory was that on LAN they were going to get better because they've been playing out of Vancouver. They come into LAN, they get 3-0'd by Toronto, they get 3-1'd by Rocker. So, yeah, 1-6 map count for Surge, not ideal at all. Geo drops 104 in the end with a 1.2, or 1.4, sorry. It was Nero that had the 1.2. So Rocker advance. They will, I think, play Cloud9, and we'll get to that in a second. Nastie wasn't very happy, and I think he played okay on like the game 3 and stuff, but apart from that, it was a pretty rough affair for all involved. But we've got to talk about OpTic Texas, because this, from map 1 of this series, it was pretty clear that today was going to be a serious challenge for OpTic, and that's exactly what it proved to be. They played Gentlemates, they got crushed on what has been arguably like their best hardpoint map. I think there were a number of issues that really OpTic got exposed on today, and mainly it's in the hardpoint modes, which is surprising because OpTic were near enough, if not the best hardpoint team online. They turn up to LAN and they get absolutely crushed on one of their absolute favourite maps. Kismet had a great map, Lynz had a great map here. I mean, how often do you see Shotzzy, Huke and Dashy pretty much all near enough double negative? I think, look, people are going to talk about Huke, people are going to talk about Kenny. I think Shotzzy, again, he's got a bit of inconsistency, he's going to be up and down. Dashy was very disappointing to me. I didn't even really, apart from Search and Destroy, I didn't really notice him much on the map this entire weekend, which, you know, feels rough to say, but I think it's relatively true. They did, however, clutch him in the round 11, a crucial one actually. It was actually a 1 versus 1 in the end. There was one particular round here that OpTic played in a way that they often play Search and Destroy, where they maybe get a life advantage, and Guerrillas just made a good play, Gentlemates hit the retake. The other thing to say about this series, of course, was the crowd, and just how phenomenal it was to have the series that we had in front of this crowd. On one side, you had the 500 Gentlemates fans that flew over from France, like, you know, they really delivered. It was great to listen to them. It was so loud at the venue as well. I think the venue isn't packed out yet. I think it will get busier and busier as we get to the weekend, certainly because, you know, local Spanish fans aren't going to be working tomorrow and Sunday, or Sunday, of course, Saturday and Sunday, so they'll be here in the venue bringing the noise. Obviously, you know, Heretics is still alive. They play tomorrow, so that's pretty exciting. And to be fair, HyDra is still in the tournament as well, although Gentlemates are not, as we shall discuss here in a second. But it was crazy to see the kind of crowd versus crowd thing, because in the center you had, you know, a lot of OpTic fans, and then the Gentlemate army pretty much were up top, and they were supporting their boys. And it was amazing to witness it in person, actually, and to hear how loud it was, even through the glass that we were doing the watch party from, and just kind of feel the energy in the venue. Sign of things to come, hopefully. If we get a Paris event next year, wow, that's going to be mega. But OpTic, look, their offense here, I wasn't so convinced by, but they dominated the other rounds. And this looked like it was going to be very similar to what happens in their first series, where they lost, of course, to Heretics, where they looked good, map 2, map 3, but all of a sudden they lose map 4. And they played Skyline again, and so many moments here, holding P4, getting broken on P3, that were just costing OpTic big time. And I know that, well, Octane was absolutely crashing out on Huke and some of the plays that he was making, you know, chasing red dots, stuff like this. It's difficult, like, there's no scapegoat for OpTic. I think that's the takeaway, really. I know that Benjay said it a lot on the watch party as well, that as far as he's concerned, it's not a one-man thing with OpTic. It's more of like an approach thing, that OpTic are going to be inconsistent with the way that they approach practice, with the way they approach their gameplay. And we saw that. I mean, last year they were top 12 at a tournament. Then next tournament they won the World Championship, right? So I'm not saying, oh, you've got to drop this guy, drop that guy, it's over. But I think for the first showing of the season, certainly given where they were online, it raises big questions on whether OpTic are going to be able to translate this one, because losing both hardpoints, I mean, OpTic hitting a Neslo, a 2-3-5 on Gentlemates, definitely not on my bingo card to start out the tournament. But OpTic did do well in the final Search and Destroy. They get the job done. And obviously Parasite was talking about their play in that series. But it did feel like, look, Ravens have been very sloppy. They got past Falcons, but not even very convincingly. They'd been embarrassed by Thieves the previous day in the respawns. So the feeling was that, like, look, sure, whoever wins OpTic versus Gentlemates, they're probably going to get through to top 6, get to Sunday, no problems at all. Not, of course, how it turned out. This is what I thought was just such a cool thing to witness, which was the Gentlemates fans going outside after the series and giving their team basically like a standing ovation, right? So, look, Lynz had a great performance on the map 4 to take them to the map 5. He made some questionable plays, but they were generally pretty effective. And yeah, here are the boys walking out with the honor basically that the crowd gave them. I thought this is so cool to see, right? This is what I've talked about with these international teams. Even if this was a 4-man French roster that wasn't very good, this is still great for the scene. And look, Lynz is probably going to be there for a long time. I'm hoping the French fans continue to show up in support maybe for HyDra for the rest of the weekends. And I think they will because, they're paid to get here. I don't think they're just going to dip. And they were here all of yesterday when the team didn't play. So it's been great to witness. I don't think that's necessarily going to be changing. Priestahh, they played pretty well. I honestly think Gentlemates didn't play bad at all. It's just, unfortunately for them, they weren't quite good enough. And I think, to be honest, after this series, I thought, you know what? Maybe this team should stick it out. And maybe they still should. The problem is they've lost to an OpTic team that have lost to Miami and now Ravens. So it's not like Gorillas lost to the eventual champions in the first round of losers, right? So I think that's something for them to have, at the very least, consider, that they got Nesloed by OpTic, that of course went on to play again. Boston then played Cloud9. I thought Boston were potentially going to win this one. I thought it was going to be close, but I kind of fancied Boston to win this, and I genuinely feel like they are a significantly better team than they showed this tournament. They played FaZe, they played Cloud9. Cloud9 might make a run, who knows? They've obviously got talent there. Simp finally had an excellent series. Kremp and Mack delivered. Attach was better as well. So, I think Cloud9 played at a pretty good level this map, to be fair, this series. This was a crazy game one, though. Simp was doing everything to get them back in the game, but then Snoopy went big, and they closed out 250-244. This actually was some Shotzzy. Trey was doing some great interviews over the last couple of days, and he was speaking to Shotzzy, and Shotzzy said, look, when we get going, it's over for the other teams. But, well, we'll get back to that, of course, in a couple of seconds. So, Boston win game 5 here, and in the game 5, I think this series in many ways was probably always going to go game 5, but in the game 5, it was Cammy that really had a hard time, and I think that there will be some questions on this, because Awakening was probably their weaker S&D, or certainly their weaker AR player so far this season, but in this series he turned up, and he looked pretty good over the last couple of series. Cammy has had now a few stinkers in a row, and he was doing damage, but he just wasn't finishing kills. And closing out the final map 1 in 9 in a critical map to stay in the tournament. Not ideal at all there from, Cammy especially. Ends the series with a 0.7. And he did tweet out saying, look, he's just straight up got to get better here. For some reason, they played Protocol Control again, although they're just not good at it. I don't know why they do it. Just to mention, by the way, Kenny's actual damage was 11,000 here. There was like people, I don't know, drama with the game settings. You know how it goes with the scoreboards and stuff. So Kenny had more damage here than his numbers suggest. And Kenny wasn't bad in this particular series. Boston, unfortunately for them, go home. But we've got to talk about this Ravens OpTic series, because this was, I don't know what to say really at this point, because after what happened earlier in the day and what happened yesterday, I thought, look, Ravens OpTic was always going to be interesting. They played at the minor, and obviously Ravens beat them in 5. Shotzzy was talking a lot about their respawn just not being very good, and there was lots of trash talk to mention after the first map. They played the protocol again. OpTic brought a phenomenal comeback here to win this one. Ravens, you'd have thought this might have broken their back, right? Huke had a good map, 36 in 25 at this point. Dashy gets a 2-piece. OpTic close out the game 1, and Ravens, of course, are going to be pretty livid after this, thinking, oh man, that was our chance. But of course, the nice thing for Ravens is they've always got the game 2, because they're going to be good at search and destroy. Even we heard in the listenings when Huke was like, hey, we should go to new hardpoints, and Kenny was on the comms saying like, I'm just going to hit old, and Chance was then on the cast saying, we probably should have rotated on that one. So just the feeling of Huke and Kenny and OpTic not being on the same page, that felt like a bit of an issue, and it's, I'm sure, going to be a conversation topic for the next few days. So Teja's feeling like Teja in the search and destroy. No real surprise, right? Ravens are going to close this out. They're going to win the search, fair enough. But the way that they then won the series from there, it was a protocol control. And, the final round of this, it was a 4 versus 2. OpTic were flying out the window. Like, the comms, the clutch factor. Look, they had the fans against them on some regard. Look, they had a big Gentlemates contingency earlier on. They won that series. This series, obviously everyone in the venue pretty much wanted OpTic to win. But that's not how it went. And even with Gwinn having a pretty rough map here, it didn't matter. Vivid, they called him like the Cyclops or whatever today because he's rocking with one eye. But he was still turning on the boys. So OpTic finally won a hardpoint on the map 1. But then the map 4, they go to a Hacienda. And again, TJ had a great performance here, I thought. Like, he really turned up towards the end. And there just wasn't much production coming out the other way. I mean, look, for a team that talked a lot about Ravens' respawn play, their hardpoint play, it's an inexcusable loss in many respects. Where do they opt to go from here? It's a big question. I'm intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. I don't think a roster change is the right conclusion. I don't think that's what they're going to do. But given they were the #1 seed for this tournament, coming in and getting top 8, how many OpTic fans are that surprised that they came and looked like a different team on LAN? I would say there are some that are surprised. I would say that there were some others that kind of felt like this was a potential reality. So, intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. I think there's a lot to digest as of today. We'll have a look at the bracket and everything in more detail tomorrow morning. Great to meet all of you guys again at the venue today. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.